You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, this is Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com, thechrisvossshow.com. I felt like singing it, but we figured we'd let the Iron Lady sing it. So welcome to the show, my family and friends. We certainly appreciate you guys coming by. As always, the Chris Voss Show family is the family that loves you, but doesn't judge you. So remember that. It's a holiday time. People are lonely. People feel lost. People feel like they're alone. You're never alone in the world with the Chris Voss Show. There's a billion episodes that they can listen to. For 15 years, we've been bringing you the CEOs, the billionaires, the White House presidential advisors, the governors, the Congress members, the U.S. ambassadors, astronauts, Pulitzer Prize winners, and authors. They share with you the brilliance of the spectrum of their life, if you were. I'm going to get poetic here, folks, ladies and gentlemen. No, I'm not. And they share with you this beautiful, concise, detailed, juicy concentrate of their lives and how they resolve their issues in lives. And you're going to learn so much and change your life. And if you haven't found in all the episodes we've done over 15 years, 3 to 4 episodes a day, 15 to 20 episodes a week, if you have not found something that can change your life, I don't know what to tell you, man. Check your IQ. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining the Chris Voss Show. As always, refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. We couldn't do it without your relatives because they need as much help as they can get. Trust me, you're going to see them soon at Christmas dinner and go, man, I need to get these guys to listen to the Chris Voss Show. They need some help. And if you don't think that, well, you're probably the one. Anyway, guys, go to youtube.com/Chris Voss. Facebook. I just offend everybody on the show at the beginning. Chris Voss, Facebook.com. Go to LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss. And subscribe to the LinkedIn newsletter, the LinkedIn 130,000 group over there. That thing grows like a weed. It's just crazy. Chris Voss won on the tickety-tockety. Today we have a spy on the show. We're talking spycraft. There might be some secrets on the show. I don't know, something like that, whatever. And we'll have to be careful what we ask him, because if he says anything, I don't know, the whole audience might have to get, like, moved to a gulag in Poland or something with black helicopters. We have Pete A. Turner, who joins us on the show today. He's going to be talking to us about what he does and how he does it. He's a former combat spy turned talk show host. He was deployed for over 70 months in conflict zones. He's been on over 1,000 combat patrols. His efforts to establish networks, both internally and externally, made Pete a valued advisor for U.S. interests. Today, he hosts and produces the Break It Down show. The show recently passed its 10-year anniversary and has published over 1,500 episodes. Congratulations, man. That's so much work, but it's a labor of love. But, most podcasts, like 98% of them, don't make past episode 25. Pete is the co-chairman for the IINPS, a nonprofit think tank designed to reduce the harm and waste the U.S. causes with its foreign policy. What? You mean we did bad things in our foreign policy? CIA. Welcome to the show, Pete. How are you?
Hey, man, I'm great. It's always an honor to be on someone else's show, and I dig it. I dig everything you're doing, and I just think the world of you.
Thanks, man. I certainly appreciate it. We think the world of you too, Pete. Thanks for your tour of duty and protecting us, being the person between us and the bad guys in the world. So, yeah. Pete, give us a .coms. Where should people find you on the interwebs?
The best place to go is my YouTube channel. Just type in Pete A. Turner and it should come up. That's probably the best place to reach me, or Pete A. Turner on any of the big social media platforms. I primarily hang around on Twitter and Facebook. Those are probably the best places to catch me. Otherwise, I'm sort of, look, I only have so much time for these things, right? So I'm intermittent on all of the other stuff. But those are the spots.
There you go. So let's get into it. Tell us about what you guys do there at your company, your nonprofit, and what you're up to.
When I came back from Afghanistan the last time, I was trying to be done with war and conflict, but I knew I wanted to tell the stories. And so my buddy John was doing a little community radio thing, and we started vibing. And you know how these things go. It grew, and they kicked us out. They said, "Hey, you can't be part of the community radio thing anymore. You gotta go do something bigger. Go redream it." And that became the podcast. And
Huh.
between his network and my network and the network that I built, man, the Break It Down show. I can't. I was interviewing Rich Little last Friday. This time,
Wow.
I was in Rich Little's house.
There you
You know,
go. How's he
and
doing?
so it's just he's doing great. He's doing great. He still has a show on the Strip. His theater is at the Tropicana. And
Uh-huh.
over and over again, I've had two. He's one of them, but I've had two people that have hosted the Tonight Show on my show. I mean, it's
That's
just like
awesome.
it's amazing. And you know how this is. It changes your life when you have a successful show and you
Mhm.
go out. And one of the things that I do that makes me different is I go, if possible, I go to the person on location.
Oh, wow.
The other thing I do is, and today's episode was incredible. I had an author who wrote about all of the saboteurs that the UK trained during World War II. And then I brought in another award-winning historian named Haluk Kochansky, and she wrote about the resistance. And these two books, these two scholars, their work goes together, and they had never met, even though they're part of the same clubs. And so I create these dynamics that otherwise aren't possible. And it's just I know you recognize this. Everybody I know because of my show. My network has exploded because of the Break It Down show and the opportunities. And I look around sometimes and I'm like, how did I get there? It looks like I'm going to make a movie. I never had a design to do this. This is just what happens when you meet all these incredible people and you create value in their lives.
There you go. I remember Rich Little growing up watching the Carol Burnett show.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
believe he
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
on. If I remember, we're talking today about my head's a little funky today. I think you should. Have you done the book yet on your stories of
The book is coming.
military
Yeah,
and
the
everything?
book is coming. You know this. You talk to authors. I've had so many authors on the show, and it's just very hard to justify the time that goes into a book because chances are it's like a podcast. Chances are you write it and it's like I spent 2,000 hours writing this thing and $5,000 getting it published, and here's what I have now. I have to buy a bunch of my own books. It's like I haven't been super thrilled about doing that, but it is coming. It's plugging along. I've got a zillion stories, so it'll be exciting
I'm
when it
sure
comes
you
out.
do. I mean, just
Oh
from the
yeah,
military alone, we've had so many military folks on the show. Great books about leadership because the military is so great at preparing
yeah.
leaders and everything else. And of course, your adventures in the podcast world and all that good
Mhm.
stuff and what goes into it. So let's get into what's going on, and I think your nonprofit help us deal with foreign policy. Why don't you give us your journey, your hero's journey through life? How did you grow up? How did you get in the military? What motivated you to do that?
Yeah.
And get down some of the roads you went down, and how to become a spy for that matter.
it's
Spy.
it's all sort of it all makes sense in the rearview mirror, but it didn't was ever by design. So I just sort of do the next thing. So graduated from high school. I wasn't a bad student, but I was kind of a nonchalant with my work, and so didn't have a great GPA. Went to community college. I went to I think it was 10 different colleges, and then I got a degree, and then I got a master's degree. Before I got the master's, though, I graduated. I looked around and I couldn't find a job anywhere, right? Because the job market was crap. And so I took my degree and I went to the Army and I became a counterintelligence agent. And
Huh?
that was super simple. My recruiter's like, you tested off the charts. You can have any job you want. And what kind of job do you want? And I'm like, I don't know. You're the recruiter. You tell me. And I kind of just I did the I did the thing like Lane from Say Anything. He's like, I don't want to work outside. I don't want to work inside. I don't want to kill people, but I'm willing to, and you do all these things. And he's like, you should be in intelligence. And so
Ah,
he's like, the higher the number, the better the job. 97 Bravo. I've never put anybody into that job. It must be awesome. And so that's how I became a counterintelligence agent. And then
wow.
I deployed a bunch, and it turned out I was pretty good at it because the way I approach the job, and I have a very specific skill set with this. So I'm a combat spy, right? So I'm good to go out and tactically collect pure person to person information. So it's part like news reporter, it's part happy. I call myself Good Time Johnny. I show up somewhere, people want to see me having a good time, and so they talk to me. So I build trust, even if it's with the enemy, because that's my job is to find the enemy, build trust with them, turn them into an asset for us. And so
Ah,
that's the long and the short of it is I just kept going, man. I just kept doing interesting things and like, how can I do the next thing? And you wind up deploying for like years and years of your life because who else is going to? And here's the thing: is at my job, counterintelligence on the ground, tactical. There's nobody in the military that's done this more than me. And so I got to the black belt level, and then I got to the multiple echelons of the black belt level where I'm doing things that aren't even in the book, but they're hyper successful. And I know better than almost anybody you'll ever encounter how to collect tactically for a big military unit.
Damn. So you did the spy thing. Is there any stories that you're legally, non-classified allowed to tell us?
Yeah. Well, so because I would go off the camp all the time and I'm developing trust, I'm trying to find the people that no one else, no other American's going to meet. And you become influential when this happens. So at one point, I'm off in this remote district, nowhere near roads, it's just Stone Age, really, where it's at. And the governor that I'm talking to, he's an Afghan governor. He says, "Hey, Pete, I want you to come to this meeting at Dave's house, just a couple houses away." And so I'm like, "Yeah, of course, anything you want." So I go to this meeting. There's always farmers around, and I don't know anything is different. They ask me some questions. I ask them some questions. I just do the normal standard meeting that I would do. And then I went home. Well, a couple of days later, the governor calls me back in his office. He's like, "Hey, I got to let you know something. Um, the Taliban told me to set up a meeting with you." And that's what we did over at Dave's house. The guy's name's not Dave, obviously.
Yeah.
But so they vetted you and they've decided that you're a good dude and you're authorized to work in the Valley. And so
Wow.
yeah, you get, and that's because I don't lie about who I am. I don't lie about what my name is. I'm honest, and I tell them I'm here to help. I'm here to provide you a voice. I'm here to make us better at working with you. I'm here to make you better at working with us. And I just approach the job completely differently, and that's what you have to do when you go to a place where people don't have enough things. You can't act like you know everything. You have to be humble. It's never about my ego. And it's all
Mhm.
about sitting and listening and understanding where they're at and then communicating to the military, State Department, whoever you're working with to get them to calm down, slow down, and get better.
There you go. Are there any James Bondish sort of tight, dangerous situations were in that you could tell us
Sure.
about? People love these
Yeah,
stories.
sure. So,
Yeah.
I mean, meeting with the Taliban, not exactly safe, but we'll put that one on the board. There's a guy named Johnny Walker. Maybe you've heard of him. He is the
I'd usually
most
drink it.
Yeah, well, this guy did too. He's an interpreter who worked in Iraq, and he was my interpreter for a while. He
Mhm.
belonged to the SEALs, and just because of happenstance, he ended up belonging to us. I happen to know a guy who was in the Navy, and he had attended a course that I taught at. It was a spy school.
Mhm.
Anyhow, so he's like, "Hey, we're going to give you Johnny Walker." Johnny's incredible, and Johnny is. Johnny has written a book. It's called Codename Johnny Walker. Here's how influential Johnny Walker is. He is Iraqi, never been to Buds, never been in the Navy, but the SEALs all say he can wear a trident on his chest because he's that much part of their brotherhood.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it's pretty incredible. So he was part of my little team that I was on, and we were given an assignment to go north into Kurdistan and look into some assets to see if they would be useful for the American interests.
Mhm.
And so we drove, and at one point on the way back, there was a checkpoint. Now, this time in northern Iraq, the checkpoint situation was pretty dicey. You didn't know what was real, what was not. You didn't know, even if they were legitimately Iraqi forces or police, they still might decide on that day to give you a bad day. So they pulled us off the road, and Johnny, who's got a world-class mouthpiece, gets out and he starts talking to these guys, and he is right in front of me. So I'm sitting in our car, and right in front, I'm in the passenger seat, and right in front of me, Johnny is talking. And if you've ever seen Iraqi males talk, it looks like there's about to be a fight in an instant, and so it's very tense. My gun is off. It's off safe. My finger's on the trigger, and behind me is my partner, and he and I are both going to start sending rounds through the windshield if things get dicey. And I'm going to do a dead driver drill, and I'm going to get us the hell out of there.
You guys
But
are on it, man. You're prepared. Finger on the trigger.
yeah, and pulled the slack out. So I was ready to let go, but Johnny talked his way out of it because we weren't doing the wrong things, and they finally believed it, and so nobody got hurt, nothing bad happened. But I'll tell you what, man, that's as close to like this is about to go down, and holy, but this is it right here, and it worked out. And I don't know that we would have gotten out of there alive. Thankfully, Johnny talked them down, and it's just an amazing thing. I've also been hit on an American camp in an American vehicle. I got hit in a head-on accident with the tank. And so you talk about danger. It's dangerous on the camp as well as off.
Is someone driving a tank in your general direction, or did you walk into it?
No, we were driving down a road just like they were, and they hit our vehicle and the vehicle behind us, and we were all Americans. We were on our way to the airport, and they were just driving down the road. They were just going home. So it's just one big group of cluster of camps, and
Wow.
they hit us and tore the hell out of our car. And my buddy who was behind us in a Humvee, he got ejected out of the Humvee. That's how hard they hit him. They ejected
Really?
him out of the Humvee, seatbelted into the seat. The seat went with him.
How fast was that fucking tank going?
I don't know, but it never stopped.
It
It just kept right on going.
Kept right on going.
Kept right on
Wow.
going.
Well,
Yeah.
I hope they had good insurance.
Yeah, VA insurance, right?
I think, that or isn't Geico, wasn't it originally government insurance? Something like that. I don't
Probably,
know.
yeah. I think so. Yeah.
That's the story there. Lots of adventures that have gone into your life. You have so many stories. You have to do a book, man. I'm serious.
Yeah. It's coming.
I'm telling you, see, if you can, just like hire somebody to do the translations and just do the audio, like give them the audio and stuff and feed it in.
Yeah.
And if you got too many stories, just make it 2 or 3 books. Just pick them, space them out. That's the best way to do. So what do you think of what's going on in our world today? Do you want to comment on anything that's going on? There's
Sure.
a couple of wars going on. I don't know if you've heard the news.
Yeah, there are a couple of wars going on. What do you want to talk about?
Let's talk about this, because this is always fascinating. My first book that I read was 1,000 Days. It wasn't my first book I read, but my first big book that I read was Schlesinger's 1,000 Days. And it really opened my mind to what I started to see with how we as a country stick our little fingers in everything because we're trying to support democracy. Meanwhile, we overthrow democratic people and and the muck-ups that we do, in the 80s with Reagan and what was it wasn't Ecuador, it was
Iran Contra.
There's the Iran Contra. But there's so much shit we've done in South America, the muck around South America between overthrowing leaders, Cuba, our muck-ups with Cuba. And so 1,000 Days kind of opened me the first eyes of the CIA mucking stuff about, assassinations. We created Osama bin Laden. Look how that turned out. So many different instances where we've tried to do something, putting our thumb on the scale of, well, we're trying to get democracy around the world. And, I imagine there's rare times where we get it right. It seems like we get it wrong a lot and we cause our own problems. I don't know. Maybe you want to comment on some of that. That's contributed a little bit probably to the Ukraine-Russia thing.
Yeah.
Maybe to the Middle East. Who knows?
It has. And, there's a lot of evidence for this. You talked about Osama bin Laden, Ho Chi Minh. We tend to pick the wrong people. And the IIMPS that you mentioned, that's my nonprofit think tank. And part of what we're trying to do is, like, from top to the bottom, like, if our foreign policy is askew and if it's not in touch with reality, then by the time you get down to the ground, none of it makes any sense. And so how do you link the foreign policy, the theory, the academics to the practitioners on the ground, and then try to figure out how to make practitioners capable, right? So I don't want to get too theoretic, but the problem we face is we make a decision, boom, we lay down the line, and then we will try to impact other countries. We did this with Afghanistan, other countries' elections. Mm-hmm. Boy, if you do that to us, we get mad.
Oh yeah, we get all bent up.
We lose our shit. Yeah, but we see that we have license to do that with everybody. Look, in intention and quality doesn't matter because we're supposed to be better than that, and we have this belief. So I'll give you an example. We have this belief that in the Bush doctrine that freedom is a universal value and everybody wants it. So I'm talking to this Iraqi dude, and he's like, "Yeah, no, I love freedom. I love that you guys are here. It's great. I finally don't have all these people on my back, and I can just, kind of manage my own family and do things." And I said, "That's great." He's like, "Yeah, it's the best thing ever. We really love America." And then the next topic we get into, he talks about how his daughter was on the roof of their house hanging laundry, and she was dawdling up there and taking too much time. And because of that, he had to go up there and beat her. And I was like, "Dude, that's not how we do freedom right now. We don't beat our women."
Yeah, or we try not to.
Right. And what I understood later was that because she was up there, the perception that he's soft on his daughter, that they are not good Muslims, it would draw attention to his family. So he has to do this performative denial of freedom to protect his family ultimately, and teach this lesson to his kids. And so when you go into the world, you can't even understand that. You think this guy's some kind of monster, but where he lives, that's how you survive.
Yeah. And you guys are trying to do that through your nonprofit, where you're trying to help U.S. foreign policy do a better job. You know, I remember
Right.
we've had a few people from the Council of Foreign Relations on, but we had Richard Voss on, and I believe it was him who talked about it. One of our problems that we have with the way our country works is, every 4 years, roughly, I mean, unless somebody gets reelected, we bring in a whole new administration,
That's
and
right.
they have these great ideas. They think they've won. They're so high on life because they won the lottery,
Yeah.
and so they think they have this mandate, or we're here to change the world. Those last guys were fuck ups, but we're here to make all the difference. And
Yeah.
the discussion has been that it's what's created the problems with the Middle East, and it's what's created the problems in other worlds, because somebody comes in, they change everything, and then and like I believe the Taliban in Afghanistan, and I'm sure China, I believe, has the same sort of attitude. They're just like, we can't take these idiots for serious, because every 4 years, some guy's got, they're going Y and they're going Z, and you just never know. And then if somebody who really seems to know what they're doing comes into place, you just need to wait a couple more years and they'll be gone. And so I think that's one of the things, according to them, that contribute to our failed foreign policy in some areas of the world.
When our priorities are messed up, I'm going to use the ground level. I'm going to use Mr. Beast as an example. He recently drilled a bunch of wells in Africa. And so you do that, and we feel good about ourselves, like, oh, Mr. Beast is the best. And I'm not saying Mr. Beast is not a great guy. I'm just saying, you don't get to go in and start changing people's worlds without spending a lot of time knowing those people, understanding the culture. And so when you come in and say, hey, we're going to go drill these wells, even if someone's asked you to do it, you don't know how you're impacting that community. You don't know what's happening one community over. Did you just get a bunch of people killed because you went in somewhere and you gave them fresh water? And by the way, as soon as you have fresh water, and it's great to do that, what do you do with the wastewater? All this water that's been used, that's been whatever, it has to go somewhere, because you don't want to create a bunch of disease and give a government that doesn't have the capacity to deal with that a bigger problem.
Great. So he gave them water, but he didn't give them toilets.
Right, exactly. And toilets or food or anywhere where that water goes, if it picks up any kind of pathogen or any kind of chemical compound, if it's in the dirt resting because the water is never wet enough and now it comes out, there's so many problems with these things. And so, like, well, that's the next problem. Like, you don't get to do that. You don't get to go out and just change someone's world and say you didn't do any harm, because, okay, that's fine. Send me and I'll go out there right now and we'll find out what kind of harm is there, because there's always harm. The U.S. always destabilizes. That's our norm, is that we destabilize. And the IMPS is built to try to gather all of the experts and look at what the actual foreign policy should be, because we'll pick a foreign policy, and we'll use Ukraine as an example. You have all these businessmen who are doing incredible industrial things and providing stability throughout Europe. And then you come in and say, these guys are oligarchs. All right. Why are they oligarchs? Well, they have a lot of influence. Okay. And they're tied to Russia. Like, well, Russia is right next door, and these guys were all former Soviets. So yeah, that's true. But we don't like them. Well, why? And so you have all these problems that come from that. One of the things that happens in Ukraine is, as they try to get rid of these, I'm doing quoted fingers, oligarchs, they'll seize a factory, and they'll say, hey, this factory that makes aggregate for concrete, you are an oligarch, we're going to seize it. And so they'll seize it, and they'll take all the money out of the bank and throw everybody who works there in jail. And then a couple months later, they'll come back to that businessman and they'll say, hey, we're going to ask you to take over this aggregate plant. We actually don't know how to run it, and it's going terrible for us. So we'll give it back to you. And you're like, yeah, well, I need my guys out of jail. Yeah, and I need my money back. They're like, no, money's gone. Sorry. And so that's part of this corruption wheel. And the people that we pick, even in Ukraine, we look at like Timoshenko, the female president. I don't know if you know all these characters, but this is an actual criminal. This is actually someone that went to Russia and went crawfish on a deal that benefited Ukraine. And we're like, yeah, because pretty, speaks English, and a woman. And boy, like that checks all these boxes.
God damn
so
it.
our priorities get messed up, and we're afraid to go let people who are good at what they do. We did this in Iraq a lot. We're afraid to let people who do the leading if they're from the wrong party or the wrong ideology or the wrong whatever. And these folks have no idea they're on the wrong side of anything. They just know that the person. And look, I'll give you an example from Iraq. I'm in this village, and they're like, everything here is messed up. It's the common theme. Everything here is messed up. Tell me why. Well, first off, our mayor, he was the cobbler. And you're like, okay, so what? They're like, he wasn't even the best cobbler. He's terrible. And he does only things for his own. And look, maybe none of this is true, but that's where you start. It's like they have a problem with their cobbler, and he's now a mayor. So you go talk to the mayor and you find out what his problems are. And then you slowly work your way through this problem. And you find out that we are the main problem because we bring in corruption. We bring in too much power. And whenever we come somewhere, we warp reality to our own need. And I'm telling you right now, man, it doesn't work. And that's why we lose all these wars, because our foreign policy is out of alignment with reality. And the people who work on the ground, they'll say things like, Chris, this is what they say. They'll say, it's an army guy talking, right? He's like, hey, I don't care what the mayor wants. My boss wants this. And you're like, dude, your boss is not the mayor. And so one of the biggest lessons I learned, and I'm going to shut up after this, I had a governor, and he looks at me and says, Pete, you really want to help? There's only room for one sword in the scabbard. And I'm like, you're right. Who's the sword? He's like, you got to tell me. And I'm like, all right, it needs to be you. So I got to go convince the army boss. This is an infantry commander. I got to go convince him and say, hey, only room for one sword in the scabbard. Who's it going to be? And he's got to say, what's that guy? And how many commanders will accept that lesson? Most of them won't. It takes a long time to get them to see that we have to get behind the Afghan or the Iraqi plan. And we don't like it. It's uncomfortable. It's hard. It's dangerous. It's deliberate. The progress doesn't fit a timeline. And like you said, you got elections, you got 1-year combat tours, and there's budget cycles. And none of these things relate to what I have to do on the ground.
Yeah. Is it true that these things are driven by our oligarchs that own Halliburton and other things? Is this really, is there truth behind, do you think, the fact that basically our war machines, our companies, are the real driving force between the stupid shit that we're always doing with our little band of Zionism?
At my cynical worst, sure, like these guys want this. The reality is the people that get hired to work in the DC world and then who work for the contractors, these are all the same people. And so they have all of the same ideas. So when this Russia thing kicked off, you have to count how many people in DC have PhDs on there's a war in Russia, here's what's going to happen. And these people are all, they're look, I don't want to be unfair, but they are rabid about this. They're desperate for it to happen because this is their chance to get into the lab and prove their point and be smart. And these are all smart people. But if you create the conflict, it doesn't make you smart. Like there's nothing good about a war. Once the war dragon gets out, it consumes everything. It never starves. It feasts. It eats people. It destroys lives, destroys fortunes. It never stops. You can't get it back into the box. It just continues to kill people. And no one can control it. I'm great at war. I'm great at it. If the war dragon chose me, there wouldn't be a damn thing I could do about it. It damn near did choose me. I mean, I nearly took my own life at one point. I was so obsolete, right? So we have to make better decisions. And these folks in DC, all the folks fomenting this thing about, China's going to invade Taiwan, knock it off. No, they're not. Let's not focus on that. Why would they go across 100 miles of open ocean to go into an enemy that's ready for them? Come on, let's not create that. Let's get better. Look, if I had my way, I would take people out. We'd be international people. We would go learn how to work culturally so that I can have these people blend into any culture in the world and not influence, but listen and work within their system to figure out I used to always say, what is the smallest problem we can solve today? And they would say X. And I'm like, go to the government and let's start working on it. So they would go to the government. That's a great result. Now they went to their government to solve problem X. And then we would see, and the problems were small, but that's where you start. You can't just say, hey, go build a mall over here and hire a bunch of people because we want to improve the economy. That never works.
Yeah, it's like I say, it was interesting to me to read 1,000 Days and the first Cuba crisis and how the CIA misled John F. Kennedy, and the subsequent things. the things in the 80s that the Reagan policy did that basically turned South America into a killing field. And a lot of what's interesting about Americans and American society is we don't connect any of these dots. Like we don't connect that all the mucking around and fucking around that we did in South America, going back into the 80s and 70s, even the mucking around Cuba. Fidel Castro would have flipped to us. We just were like, no, we already got a guy to fill the position. Fuck off. He adored the United States. He sent money. He sent a thing to get a dollar bill from us when he was a kid, and he would have easily flipped to us. But we're just like, no, we got a guy. You're fine. You're rebels, whatever. And all these things, all these events are tied together. And like, right now everyone complains about, oh, we don't, we got to fix the border and blah, blah, blah. And yet we have employment shortages. We actually need people. But they're like, we have all these people, coming from South America is so bad. Yeah, because we fucked it up. We put our fingers on the scale and mucked up the whole continent for 40 years. That's on us when it comes down
Chris,
to it.
My rule on instability operations is that wherever we show up, we create more instability. And the second rule is that we refuse to accept that.
Yeah.
And so as soon as the State Department shows up, and I'm going to be hard on these guys, because guess what? They can take it, and they've made a lot of mistakes. And when they do, people die. So that's part of the IMPS, this charter is like, hey, knock it off. Stop picking people, slow down. You're not the smartest person in the room. And you have to respect the fact that they have a way of doing things. And if you're uncomfortable accomplishing your goal along their cultural path, then you're in the wrong business, man. Like that's how it has to be. We love to tell the countries what to do, and then about face it, walk away from them. Hey, all you women in Afghanistan, you can have a future. I'm a peer-reviewed published author on female engagement in foreign countries, Afghanistan focused. We'll say, hey, you can be an astronaut, you can go to college, you can have rights. And they're like, hey, by the way, see you later. And we disappear, and all of these women, they get killed. And you can't show up in someone's village and say, I'm here to talk to the women. The biggest training aspect of this is I've been in the rooms. The person, someone will say, hey, we got to get on the female engagement thing. What are we going to do? And someone will say, have Miller do it. She's a female. And that's the end of the qualifications. Wow. Are you a female? You can go engage, and it's reckless, it's dangerous, and it's inappropriate.
Yeah,
it's normal that we do that.
What's the old line? The most scariest thing to hear in the world is, I'm here with the U.S. government. I'm here to help you.
That's Reagan. Yeah. It's true. When the State Department shows up, I know that mistakes are being made. I've watched. You go ahead.
I was referencing earlier in the show the El Mote massacre in El Salvador, and some of the. I mean, we were literally creating killing squads, funding killing squads in South America. You look at the British failures in Afghanistan, the Russian failures in Afghanistan, and somehow we just go in there like freedom will fix everything. And you look at Iraq and how we went and destabilized basically the whole fucking region, empowered Iran, shut down. Technically the war between Iran and Iraq was actually good for everyone. Unleashing this Sunni Shiite sort of thing, no one saw that coming. That if we it turns out maybe some areas of the world need a brutal dictator. I don't know. Maybe that's counter State Department sort of thing. But maybe we shouldn't. Maybe not everyone needs freedom. Basically, it's we all don't need fucking Big Macs.
Maybe they do. Maybe they crave freedom, but we don't have license to go in. We don't have the technicians, the practitioners. This is the bottom part of what the IMPS does is how do you get someone licensed? So first off, to someone who have foreign policy, are they any good at this? I mean, look, we look at the crews that have been in charge the last 25 years, the generals, the foreign policy people, they all are losers. They haven't done it. They haven't accomplished what they want to accomplish. And then you send a bunch of kids out who have no capacity for foreign language. They have no capacity for religion. One of the things I love to talk about people who think they know anything about this kind of work is how do you factor religion into this? Like religion, and they brush it aside like, well, almost everywhere else in the world, you have to work within the confines of the religion. Because if you ignore that, then you are ignoring a base part of their culture. So
there's a lot of Muslims in the world.
Yeah.
You can't just run with American Judeo-Christians everywhere.
Right. Oh, what does the Iraq flag have on it? It says Allah Akbar on it. Think religion
It
is
does?
important there? Well, it's yeah, that's what that means on
Holy
the
crap!
flag.
I had no idea.
And it means it not like in a terrorist way. It means it
Yeah,
like in a goddess, So and then the government for Afghanistan, when we were there, and that's not this anymore, the word Islamic is the second. So it's the Islamic Republic, government of the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan.
yeah.
And so the word Islamic is in it. And we don't even like that. I'm not even allowed to. I've been to mosques. But I'm not even allowed by policy to go into a mosque. Well, if someone offers me a shot on Ramadan and they're Islamic, I'm drinking it. I don't care. If they say come into our mosque, that's my job. I'm licensed to do that because I've earned the stripes.
Yeah.
And so I can go into a mosque, and I can understand that when Afghans make a decision, a real no shit community decision, there's a holy man in that room. And if not, it's performance.
Yeah.
And we hate that as Americans. And that's the stuff that we have to learn, is that religion matters. You can't just start with fixing female problems. Here's a rubric for how this works. So there's two different rubrics. One is it, and we'll use Afghanistan. Is it Afghan inspired? Is it their idea? Is it Afghan led? And is it Afghan provisioned? Are we augmenting? Then, okay, let's do that. Now we can do whatever we want and make an exception by design, but that's the standard. And the other one is, so I was talking to this governor, and I've mentioned it before, and he was saying to me, my number one priority is to get these girls educated and to improve their condition. And we're way off the main route, right? And I'm like, okay, cool. How does that work? He's like, well, first thing is, remember, first priority is women. First thing is boys have to get educated, because if they're not educated, then everything falls apart. And I'm like, okay, so the girls are behind the boys. No, girls are first, but boys have to be educated first to create stability and long-term education. Okay, before that can happen. So now we're okay, there has to be security. And so I'm like, how does that work? And it works three ways, and I'll boil this down real fast. It was, can the man leave the house and go to work and not be accosted, killed, threatened, and everything else? If he can do that, right? Can his compound be safe while he's gone from it? That's a second facet of security. And then and only then can you project your kids safely out to school, because he's safe, the house is safe, now the kids are safe to go out. If you don't have those three elements in this one valley, you can't advance the ball.
Jesus Christ. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seems like we just have this attitude of like, we're going to show up and we're going to bring McDonald's and Taco Bell and malls and everything's going to be fine. We'll just
I say it like this.
Money
Yahoo! Here we are. We're Americans. That's how I say it. It's all that stuff in one, right? Yeah. We're gonna have us a barbecue.
American. That's how we got the term.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
I gotta say this though. This is important. Everybody wants to do great. Everybody's educated. Yeah. Everybody's trying their best, but it doesn't work. Slow down, right? Yeah. So everybody has the right intention. We all want to help. We're desperate to do it. Americans are great about that. And we spend our hard-earned tax money on this stuff, but let's stop effing up as much.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, sometimes as much, and I suppose, we always like, there's always the joke memes about how anything that happens in the world, we're just like, yeah, we don't care. Is there oil there? No oil? Okay. We don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
It seems to be like more like the government is an oligarchy, policeman, enforcer. We're an enforcer for oligarchs, anything these days. And I'm quoting a few different people who call us an oligarchy at this point, including President Carter. But I think we're very close to that at this point in time, especially when you see Citizens United and different SCOTUS rulings that have made it so you can just buy a SCOTUS judge now if you're a billionaire. You just own one. It's pretty cool. You can put them on your mantle and shit. Give them a little RV to keep them happy and shit. You're in business. So we've talked about foreign policy and how the ways we muck it up. How does your think tank, the IINPS, how do you guys, talk to these people at the State Department or foreign policy advisors and go, hey dudes, let's try something different?
Well, we invite them in. We have to have these folks be part of the process. So part of who we are is we have ambassadors. These are people that have been in DC forever. They know how that part of the machine works. They can call into the White House. They can get counsel, because you have to have the entire stack of talent, right? And so We're working with the preeminent cultural intelligence expert in the world because we talk about emotional intelligence. Man, if you don't got cultural intelligence, if you don't got CQ,
If you don't understand
you're
Sunni,
obsolete. Yeah,
yeah,
like it doesn't matter how someone feels or how you think they feel.
yeah,
If you can't, this will amaze you. There is no sophisticated professional training for working with an interpreter. It's all ad hoc. It's all basically made up, and it's all based on a lack of trust because they use a Vietnam model where these people would come in and they would lie. So instead of saying you are a better version of me because you're going to communicate for me with this other person and teaching this person what you want and how you do it and treating them like an asset, we treat interpreters like they're second class citizens, even if these people have been in America
wow,
longer than us, or even if they're local kids. You have to say, I'm an American. We're going to work on this together. And you have to empower these guys. Look, you have to do your work and you have to, check them and everything. But
Mhm.
but that's simple. That's straightforward. We don't do that. So no one's even trained. There is not a specific book. Matter of fact, I'll tell you exactly now. In the counterintelligence manuals, there is a part where it talks about work with an interpreter. There are more words on the basic how to deploy a mine fast fact sheet than there are in that book on how to work an interpreter. Which do you think is more complicated?
Working interpreter. For all
Yeah,
you know, the
yeah,
guy's sitting there just going, "The city of America told me this. He's full of shit." So just whatever.
yeah,
Just pretend. Just nod
yeah,
your head.
yeah. So these are the things that we try to fix, and so that's why we grab these ambassadors. We grab people from the State Department. One of the guys we're going to be talking to soon he was the senior enlisted advisor for all of the military. So he is the senior enlisted soldier airman.
Mhm.
He represents everybody, and he's like, man, I'm desperate to help with what you guys are doing because I get it, and it's not just the folks on the ground. It's everywhere, all the way up the stack of people. Operationally, procedurally, all these folks have to understand that what we are doing, our recipe right now,
Mhm.
it ain't working. It ain't working.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier in the show, these guys who have a hard on to, the books they've written and the things they've talked about, they're interested in going to war. I mean, if you could sit down with John Bolton and maybe calm his ass down, that would be great.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that guy wants to go to war with Iraq so much. Or not Iraq, Iran so much. I'm surprised he hasn't just swam over there with a gun already and
I, you
started
know,
firing.
I don't know John Bolton. I've never worked for him. I don't know anybody who's worked for him. I know a lot of people, but I have no connection to him. But I don't take him seriously. And here's why. Okay,
He
because
started
up
the
there
Iraq
where
War.
he's yeah, well, so okay, here's where the IMPS model works, right? So he
Yeah.
has this wrong idea, right? Now we go on the ground and you go to Afghanistan, and every unit shows up. We're going to push south, and we're going to ensnare the Taliban, and what? Make them stack arms, give you their flag, and have a ceremony, and they quit. That
Yeah.
ain't going to happen. And so I'd be out with these. These are hard soldiers. These are infantry people that want to go. They're spoiling for a fight. And guess who never shows up to that fight? I said this on one of Glenn Beck's shows one time I was on it.
Mhm.
He's like, why don't we just blow them up? I'm like, dude, they don't stand in a field and wait to get blown up.
Yeah,
They
they're
don't
not like,
show up.
hey, over here. This is a great place to
Yeah,
drop something. Yeah.
because the second we leave, they can just walk right back into that village and have way more influence than us. And you
Yeah.
can tell this to any commander, like, well, then we'll push harder. You can't just go harder all the time. You have
Yeah.
to understand that making the Taliban die and go away is just not going to work. We tried and tried. The Marines tried to kill every Taliban guy they could, right? And I love the Marines,
Yeah.
but you cannot get these guys to surrender because they
And
will not. Forget the idea thing. That we can't even get them to hurt bad enough to quit.
yeah. And you saw how well that worked out after 20 plus years in
Yeah,
Afghanistan. Just
yeah.
overnight, the country was like, no, we're going back the way we always been for 10 billion years, tribal and medieval
Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
we like this sort of shit. We're not into Taco Bell.
They all had their deals in place. The number one line in every battle commander's mission statement is close with and destroy the enemy or some form of that.
Mhm.
And when you aren't doing that every day, if you're not destroying the enemy every day, what else can you do? And there are things you can do. You can stabilize the government. You can make people believe in the government. You can get, all these other aspects that allow you to leave the country. When we leave an area as a military, we just poof disappear. We don't tell anybody. We're so bad at partnering. We don't say, hey, in about 6 months, we're going to leave. No fooling. We're going to leave. What do we got to do? Here's the time we have left. What do we want to do? I would be one of those guys. I would go talk to the governors and the mayors, and I would say, no fooling. In about 3 weeks, we're leaving. And they would look at me and just go pale. They're like, if you leave, I'm going to die. And it's true. I'm thinking of right now. That dude got killed about 6 weeks after we left.
Holy
And
shit.
so that is what we do. We promise all this stuff, and then we keep it a secret for OPSEC. We don't allow the people who are going to have to lead this government, we don't allow them in the room when we tell them when we tell each other what we think the government's capable of. And so we hide all this stuff. This is simple. Invite the people who hold the reins of the government to the meeting where we talk about the government so we can learn what they need, not what we need.
And help them fix it. Yeah.
That's why we fail. Yeah. It's crazy, right? To think that you can show up, go, okay, it's fixed, self-assess your own work, and then leave and be like, how come it didn't work?
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
It's pretty, I don't know. It's weird. I'm here with the U.S. government. I'm here to help you. You know, I mean, I love our country. I love America. I love the vision of what we're technically trying to achieve. But, you know, there's some places that, I don't know, maybe they're just fine without freedom. And if they want freedom, well, just fucking fight for it for yourself. You can tune into, you know, our Western culture and all that shit, and you can see we don't need to be over here. You know, do your thing, man. We did it. We didn't. No one helped us when we fucking overthrew Britain and shit. And no one was like, hey, you need some help with that democracy over there. We're just like, no, we'll just fucking do this. We got this. You know,
I'm not saying that we can't do that, and we did get help. The French and the Dutch, these people financed and everything. The thing is that we can't just go over there without developing professional capacity to accomplish the mission and be tough enough to withstand the fact that, hey, we're screwing it up. And if your policy is bad over and over again, like say Susan Rice, right? I'm picking her not because of party, I'm picking her because of talent. And she ran out of town a long time ago. And so we're put in these terrible positions where someone else has made a decision that's not based in any kind of reality.
Yeah.
You know, I can do it all day with all of these folks who are in this policy world because they get it wrong and there's no penalty. There's never like, hey, what happens? They get hired to go somewhere else and spread more nonsense that just doesn't work.
Yeah. And, you know, every 4 years you got somebody new coming in, a bunch of new college recruits. I remember reading, you know, about John F. Kennedy, you know, and they had all the college boys who were the first time trying to run a war, you know, and they're trying to run a war of accounting where they're like, hey, if you kill somebody, we need proof. You got to bring a dead body back from, you know, 20 miles into the fucking jungle. You're like, what? How many torsos? Wait, what the fuck do you want? Where it's hard enough to kill him, man. And but they're like, oh, they don't count. You're like, are we running a business here? Are we running and you know, all the shit that we've done over the years. And you know, every like I think we have people talk about on the show, every 4 to 8 years, there's almost a new, I mean, technically even every 4 years, because usually White Houses will overturn their staff. And you know, so you got these new college kids in going, I'm gonna save the world and solve Middle East problems, and you're like, you? I mean, what makes you special? I just graduated. I've been I was with McKinsey Group for 4 years. Oh, well, that's fucking great. How'd you earn that thing again? I graduated college. Oh, that's nice. So not to bash the McKinsey Group too much, but it has kind of become a kind of meme. Final, as we go out, let's wrap the show. Tell people maybe how can they get involved with your nonprofit? Is it a donate thing? How can maybe they get involved with it?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to up our production of products so that people can start to learn and gather these things. That's the first thing. And so probably this week or next, we're going to relaunch a YouTube channel based on it. We're going to start putting out products. And that's when we'll really be ready to start to do this. We're going to have our first summit in January in DC at the Army Navy Club. So the 15th and 16th of January, you can come out to the Army Navy Club and get to see real people, real practitioners who know shit and understand what this is, and then talk to foreign policy people so that we can go, slow down, let's get this right. Let's improve our accuracy, because people die when we don't. We waste trillions of dollars getting stuff wrong. And we have to stop doing that. So the best way to get involved is, hey, you can email me, Pete@breakitdownshow.com. And then if that's what you want to do, I'll find a way to put you to work. But we're going to look, and we're going to partner with other think tanks too, right? We don't have all the answers, but we're going to grab the experts that do and create efficiency and create some elegance to our work. Because like you said, you can't have a bunch of You can't have a bunch of Ivy League people who want to work for the State Department getting things wrong nonstop. I mean, it has to improve. And I'm not saying that we'll get it right. I'm not saying that we can accomplish all these goals, but we cannot accomplish these goals if we are incompetent and if we are acting inappropriately as a norm. If we are creating instability, then maybe your premise is right. Maybe we shouldn't even be there at all. I think we can create stability, but we have to get way better at being bad at this so that we can go, wow, this is where we got to improve. And we don't like to be bad.
You know, I was hearing, I think it was, you know, I'm not being partisan here by naming names. Don't freak out people and flip out. But, you know, Mitch McConnell, I think, said it best, and I believe Biden has said it as well. The Ukraine effort is interesting. It's really flushed out, you know, but what was once thought of as the second greatest military in the world to being the second greatest military in Ukraine. I stole that joke from someone at the State Department. And they're burning down the, you know, what shitty sort of military the Russian had, and they're really exposing like all the cracks. It wasn't for nuclear weapons, Jesus Christ, and we're not even sure those work at this point. It's kind of like, what was that show with Sean Connery?
Rock?
No, it wasn't. Yeah, there's that, but it was called The Russia House.
Oh,
and
right.
It was a great movie where they find out, and this is probably, you know, what we found out during the first Iraq War, and I believe that's why Russia fell, the USSR fell, is because they're like, holy shit, they got cameras on their missiles. We got shit. We just quit already. But it's a great, it's kind of an interesting story about how they find out the Russians, you know, couldn't launch a missile on a good day. And that it's just a paper tiger, really. And so we kind of found that out, seeing what's going on with the Iraq War. But Mitch McConnell and I believe Joe Biden have said it in tandem that basically we're using the Russia war to kind of just get rid of all this old ordnance that we've had laying around so that we can make new ordnance and refill our coffers. It's kind of interesting money sort of inventory process. Like, I've never known a business to say, hey, we should start a war with, I don't know, we should go fight Amazon so that they unload all of our inventory so we can have fresh inventory. And you're just like, that's kind of an interesting way of thinking about it. And who's making money off of this again? I can see how this works. You know,
by the way, war is terrible. War is terrible for the environment. You know what it costs to have a cubic yard of concrete go 50 feet in the air and be part of a building? Like,
really?
It's enormous. Oh my gosh, it's enormously expensive in terms of, you know, petrochemicals and everything. I do, but I don't want to get distracted by that. What I want to say about Ukraine is look, Russia is not able to defeat Ukraine. Ukraine is not able to defeat Russia. This is exactly what the U.S. wants. We want a stalemate. The problem is that Russia is going to own all the eastern real estate, most likely in this, and that's where all the industrial capacity is.
Plus the grain we need.
Right. Well,
sunflower oil.
Ukraine can grow food, right? But what they need to be able to do and what they want to do is be a better option for us than China. So they want to build industrial capacity in the West, get away from Russia and not rely on them. This is an enormous opportunity for us. But we have to allow these oligarchs to do good business and allow them to be great at that. And we don't like that. And so we're going to have some worse version. Instead of having Ukraine saying, hey, let us manufacture things for you, we're going to have we're going to take a place that's got so much energy in its dirt and we're going to turn it into a solar farm or something. You know, it'd be some dumb. I promise you this is going to happen. When we go as part of the reconstruction, we're going to teach Ukrainian farmers how to grow food. I promise you that's going to happen because that's in the playbook.
Like we did in Afghanistan, where we forced them all to give up poppy fields.
Yeah. Oh, I could tell you about poppy fields. You want to hear about poppy fields? I'll tell you about poppy fields. It was all nonsense. All of it. All of these programs that the people dream up.
Yeah.
There's literally a guy in every state of Afghanistan, right? It's province, but every state has a guy who's an American, and his job is to bring the Taliban in from the cold. Like, hey, we have a program. We'll get you all educated. We'll teach you Microsoft Word, you know? And that guy can deploy for a year and do zero, never, ever, ever bring a Taliban guy in. And they would be like, that's cool. Bring the next guy in. And they would fail and they would fail and they would fail. Because it's not real. It's nonsense. So why have that dude there, right? That goes back to your thing. Don't even have that guy. Send him home.
Like, hey, you guys should give up poppy fields and grow corn. Some shit
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. Like, I didn't even know how important Ukraine was to the world. Like, when the war first broke
Yeah.
out, I'm like, why are we fighting? I mean, I understood that he was probably, and I believe they found that there were plans to basically start a NATO thing, and take over the few of the small countries next to Ukraine, and probably push the boundaries of what NATO would do. But I didn't know they were like the number one sunflower seed exporter to the world, and there's a
Mhm.
lot of shit that depends on that. Fertilizer, I believe they're the number one
Mhm.
fertilizer, and the number 2 or 3 for grain providing. Like, there are parts of the world that are starving because they can't get the grain from Ukraine, and you're just like,
Mm.
holy shit, this is a hell of a fight over resources on top of everything else.
Yeah, and there's also a legal problem there because of the corruption and the government's desire to snatch up companies. These things go to court, and then they have to exit the Ukrainian court because the Ukrainian court is too corrupt. And look back a month ago, and you find out why. But you have to exit into the greater European courts to get your finding. That doesn't mean it's enforceable in Ukraine, but it's like, hey, they owe me $500. Then you go back to Ukraine. Well, when the greater business community sees that, and they're like, what do you mean they seized your assets, stole $500 million, didn't agree to the court to see it? I'm not going to invest in that. And so
Wow.
that binds up everything because we can't get our hands wrapped around the corruption, partly because we are the corruptor.
Have you seen the shit that we're doing on the ground? I believe 60 Minutes covered this. Like, we're doing way more than military shit on the ground. Like, we've got people in there trying to teach stuff, and I can't remember what it like, just like road work, tunnels. Like, we're involved in a lot of shit. It's
We're
almost
involved in a lot of
society
stuff.
rebuilding.
Yeah. Yeah, and they want to have a more perfect society, but they can't even fix the problems in their own towns, right? We all
Yeah.
have problems, and instead of listening to the Ukrainian leaders and allowing these guys to lead Ukraine forward and away from Russia,
Yeah.
which is what we all want, we want to come in and give them the problems that we have. Look, there's a time and a place to get to these other problems, right?
Okay, we want to
We
give them
we
the problems we have.
yeah,
Like, things are working out really well. We got senators fist fighting. We got elbowing. We got basically pre-fascist violence going on in America.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
we spent so much, what, 8, 10, 12 trillion in fucking the Afghan-Iraq war, where we didn't fund schools, and now everyone's dumb as fuck, and they think that fucking fascism, authoritarianism might be really a cool change. I heard a senator the other day on Face the Nation talking about how maybe it is time we try populism. Like, you fucking serious? Like,
Yeah.
what we're having these conversations, people don't realize the conversation that's going on right now. If you study fascism and authoritarianism, we are fucking on the fast rails. And when you're seeing violence break out with political leaders, we're here, man. This is Mussolini, Nazi shit. When you got some guy who's the head of a party's using terms of Hitler and vermin on fucking purpose,
Mhm.
we're on the rails. And that's what makes me laugh so hard when you're like, yeah, we're over in Ukraine trying to help them have the same problems we do. Holy shit, man. Maybe we should
Yeah.
just all fix us first, man.
There's two axioms that I love to use. One, and look, I am for everybody. I believe in everybody, right? So don't get me wrong on this, but diversity and unity are opposite. They're
Mhm.
antonyms.
Yeah.
And it's not easy to sit in the middle between those two as a society. So there are going to be sacrifices, and some of it's going to suck. So
Yeah.
antonyms, you get diversity and unity. So you can't go to somewhere and just blow that country up because you're trying to bring diversity in. Like, leave them alone. Let's work on where they're at and where they want to be. And then the other big thing is this is just for our political leaders. Picking the lesser of two evils is picking evil. So we've got to get better people, man. You and I should be running head to head. I'm like, hey, I'm going to bring us forward, rather than, like, we can't pick from the lowest common denominator because
Yeah.
someone's electable. Like,
Yeah.
that's not a recipe for success. Let's not export that anywhere else.
Yeah. And the Kim Kardashianism of our politics has really gotten stupid. Like, I yell at people all the time now. Like, I quit being kowtowed led around by the nose by whatever the hottest stupid shit is that they're talking about. Whatever the performative politicians are out there doing. And I don't think a lot of people realize this. Somebody gave me this. It might have been on Morning Joe or Face the Nation, but somebody made this comment that one of the problems we have in our politics is the small donor issue. And originally, the small donor issue was something where like people were like, "Hey, we're getting away from the fucking oligarchs who, with Citizens United, who can buy, their politicians, and we're getting into these small donor things." Well, evidently, the small donor things is just batshit motherfucking backwoods Americans who will fund these social media performative people and send them every dime that they fucking have, like some, those crazy reverends. And so these politicians that are performative, that don't do any legislation really, have learned that if they just do political stunts when the mic's on, that they can, put out a thing and they'll get all these batshit individual donations from, these specialty groups and, a bunch of people who, they're sitting at home with, I don't know, whatever. I'm not going to profile, but you know what I mean? And I didn't even realize that. I was like, hey, those homegrown, turns out they're not. Turns out they're actually the staple for these performative guys. And it's like, I don't want to hear your batshit thing about, I don't know, we're arguing over bathrooms. How about if you fix the infrastructure in this country? We got like shit falling apart. We got like bridges falling down. We got, what's the old joke about how if the Air Force had to hold a bake sale like teachers do, and I love people that always tell me about what's in the Constitution. Those are my favorite people because I carry a Constitution you see around, and most people in the press do. And you ask somebody, where is that in here again? Anybody who quotes the Constitution pretty much almost 9 times out of 10 has no idea where the fuck that is, and it's not in the Constitution. They're just making shit up. That's unconstitutional. It's like, show me where that is in the thing. And they just make up whatever they want. But great fun discussion on foreign policy, and as always, hopefully you guys can help make the world better. Give us your final pitch out, Pete, for the podcast and what you're doing there at the nonprofit as we go out.
So to break it down, show my niche is anytime, any company, any country, anything, anywhere. I'll go talk to people. So I talk to all kinds of people. And if that's your bag, if that's the thing you like, then great. Then you'll never know what you're going to get. It's always going to be awesome. I'm a trained spy. I know how to ask questions, and I get incredible guests because we have incredible conversations. So if that's your thing, I'd love to have you over at Break It Down Show. Just go to the YouTube channel, type in Pete A. Turner. It'll come up. There's 1,500 shows there. That's the biggest thing. And then if you're in DC this January 2024, between the 15th and 16th, come on out to the Army Navy Club and you can come shake my hand and we'll all try to fix this whole foreign policy nut together. That's where my main focus of my work is. And man, I appreciate you for doing this and give me your platform for a little bit. I thank you for that.
There you go. Maybe you can grab John Bolton as a joke with Richard Voss from the Senate Council of Foreign Relations. I'm like, can we hold him down and shave that ugly ass beard off? Or his mustache. It's that nasty mustache. Yeah.
I'd rather just replace him with somebody who's more calm, and just do something else. Yeah.
I think he's like Hercules. If you take the mustache off, maybe he'll be less hard on about Iran. I asked Richard Voss, I was like, do you think that gets him more dates on Tinder? And Richard wouldn't answer. He's like, I'm not going there with you. So there you go. Thank you very much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it, Pete. Thank you very much. And to my audience, thank you for tuning in. We certainly couldn't do it without you folks. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, the big LinkedIn group. Subscribe to that damn newsletter. It grows like a weed. It's really weird. I'm just like, I didn't know there was this many people on LinkedIn that were active. Go to the big 130,000 LinkedIn group, Chris Voss 1 on TikTok, and I don't know, Chris Voss, Facebook.com. That'll get you to the thing where you can talk on the show. Thanks, Yasir, for giving us the little plug there. We certainly appreciate it. Thanks, your audience, for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe, and we'll see you guys next time.